Hello and welcome to Internet Capital Markets, the weekly show where we explore how financial systems are being rebuilt on the web. Each week, we sit down with the builders, investors, and institutional leaders shaping this transformation. From tokenized assets to decentralized finance, stablecoins, RWA, and everything in between. This show is brought to you by TrustBytes, Smart Treasury for Internet Capital Markets. Before we introduce our guest today, I'd like to welcome my co-founder and co-host, Jonas, to the show. Hey, Jonas.
Welcome back, everyone. Hi, Jeremy. And yeah, today I'm super pumped because we have Melvis on the show. Melvis is the head of the Canton Foundation. And that's like really exciting when we are looking at the market at the moment. Like everything is like deep red. But if you are looking into the blockchains and the lists of blockchains, like there's one blockchain ecosystem that is like really standing out at the moment. This is Canton. Actually, they just reached an all-time high of Canton coin a couple of weeks ago, and it appears that I don't know, they are not affected somehow by the so-called bear market. He basically leads the Canton Foundation, and Canton is like trying to bridge the gap between traditional finance and DeFi. He has a background spanning around Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, OKX, and is now leading the ecosystem growth. And a little bit more about Canton or the Canton network. I'm sure, Melvis, you will talk way more about it in a couple of minutes. Canton is basically a blockchain ecosystem that enables privacy by default and is already processing today trillions of dollars in volumes, for example, with institutional repo transactions. Welcome to the show, Melvis.
Hello, thank you. I'm very excited to be here today and looking forward to discussing Canton Network with you and your community.
Super.
Thanks.
Yeah, maybe before we dive into the technical details here and what Canton actually is and how it works, maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit more and talk a little bit more about your position at Canton or at the Canton Foundation.
Yeah, so again, name is Melvis, and my background luckily spanned between working within the micro side of finance all the way to the macro, and then eventually crypto. So started my career at Morgan Stanley, where I did fixed income risk management, then gravitated to the central funding team at Goldman Sachs. Within funding teams, I worked across liquidity management, treasury management, and also cash management for the Goldman Sachs asset management funding funds across the board. So almost $800 million assets under management. And with that, learned the different aspects around the plumbing within capital markets. From there, gravitated to the macro trading desk, where I was able to learn how to execute FX, futures, equities, and other products. So got a little bit about learning more about pricing risk, and then from there executing it and assessing how these products will impact different types of portfolios. Then gravitated to JP Morgan, where I was in electronic FX and credit. And then finally, my interest in crypto was spawned when I was doing research around Greek government bonds during the Brexit period, where I learned that some people were moving their assets from the banks that were getting nationalized into a thing called Bitcoin. This instrument, financial product, or whatever you want to call it, was fascinating because it had components of what money is. So fungibility, store of value, and the likes. And so and the other side of it was quite fascinating, was that it had underlying technology behind it. So not only was it a form of money, maybe an investment product or a technology, the fact that all those things put together was interesting. So by day, I was trading. By night, I was learning about blockchain and crypto. The fascination grew and grew, so eventually went full into crypto, where I got a role within OKX, the global exchange, where I managed the market maker program there and did strategic partnerships. And then eventually, as the market has matured And having had the mix of traditional finance and crypto, the perfect merge opportunity came when I got to join the Canton Foundation. And within Canton Foundation, our core goal is to facilitate the decentralization, open development, and governance of the core contributors to the Canton network, in addition to facilitating growth initiatives across all stakeholders. And I'll get into what Canton is down the line, and that's what the core purpose of this podcast
Wow.
is.
That's a background.
Yeah.
A broad variety here. And actually we have like something mutual or like some mutual history here. When I started with like learning about blockchain and stuff, I was actually living and working on a vineyard in Australia. So working on the vineyard during
Yeah.
day and then during night, like trying to understand everything around like blockchain and stuff. And during that time, also built my first company. Inspiring. So when we are looking into Canton more narrowly, there are like different stakeholders. Like there's like the Canton Foundation, we have the Canton Network, then also digital assets, the company, or like let's call it the lab behind it. Like how is this all coming together, and what are the individual responsibilities?
Yeah. So for this question, I think it makes sense to go back in time and talk about the origination of digital asset all the way to Canton Network. Digital asset is a tech development company that built the core technology behind the Canton network. So the DAMO smart contract language and also the Canton stack itself. Canton Network is the public permissionless blockchain that was purposely built for institutional finance, where it uniquely combines configurable privacy controls, controls, and also interoperability to enable institutions all the way to retail and individual entrepreneurs to build applications as they see fit. And then the Canton Foundation is the neutral foundation body that governs the network holistically. In terms of the origination of Canton itself, it started as digital asset was doing a lot of blockchain projects and also build outs for institutions. And then they identified that with each institution, one of the core fundamental tenets that they need to formally enter crypto was privacy. But then at that time, looking at the blockchain ecosystem, many chains, it was a binary decision that builders had to make. Either you're building a public permissionless blockchain, or you're building on a private permission chain. And in making a decision, you have to make some trade-offs. You're either building on a public permissionless chain where you get interoperability and transparency, but you do not have you do not have privacy and controls. And then when you're building a private permission chain, yes, you do get privacy and controls, but then you don't get the core value of what blockchains enable, which is the composability and the interoperability. So Canton Network was built as a public permissionless chain, but it has the core capabilities enabling the builder to enable configurable privacy controls, compliance, and as they see fit, and enable the interoperability as they want to. So Canton is a network of networks with an interoperability layer.
Thank you so much for giving the context around this and how the different pieces like DA and the network, the foundation work together. Let's dig a little bit deeper. And Canton Network, in a way, is considered to be the blockchain for institutional finance.
Yeah.
And you've secured major partnerships with the DTCC, the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, and many of the biggest banks as well in the world, like HSBC, Goldman Sachs, BNP Paribas, Deutsche Bank, and Bank of America, and so on. How is the Canton Foundation helping to facilitate that for the institutional finance world? And especially, maybe you can glimpse a little bit towards the technical level.
Yeah. So in terms of how Canton Foundation is helping to facilitate this is, at the end of the day, Canton Network wasn't launched haphazardly and quickly, in the sense that we spent over 10 years doing the research, building the tech, building the partnerships, and also building the product market fit across different verticals that the institutions needed to identify a core blockchain that they would utilize and also trust. And so in doing so, by the time that mainnet was launched, due to the years of engagements, and I'm sure you guys know this with engaging with institutions, that they don't quickly jump into an initiative without doing some core due diligence around everything within it. And so by the time that mainnet was launched a year and a half ago for the network, there was already a lot of core cadence and trust, and also build out of applications that can be facilitated at an institutional grade level, with the fundamental thing about what institutions need, which is privacy, and then still be able to enable the core value of crypto, which is the interoperability, to allow them to easily compose transactions. And so through that time period, that patience and thoughtful build out enabled the ability to capture some of the institutional interest in this technology. On top of, outside of just the technological side of it, the network governance is another key component of why the institutions have been engaging with Canton, because Canton Network isn't a network of anonymous or pseudonymous validators who are controlling the network overall. In a sense that within Canton, our foundation is a membership foundation, where the largest financial institutions, in addition to crypto native institutions, large and small, are all coming together in order to contribute to the governance and token standards of the overall platform. It's been beautiful to see that on a weekly basis we have over 100 network community members joining our different committee calls in order to discuss some of the topics and initiatives that we're facilitating in order to continuously scale and grow the network holistically. So at the end of the day, the core tech around enabling sub-transaction level privacy is very important. Being able to have institutional grade tech that has been battle tested over years before launch, and also being launched with real live production use cases. And then lastly, the ability to engage with the governance directly as an institution or as a crypto native or blockchain native entity has been the key core aspects of why we've been able to capture these institutions.
Yeah, that makes sense. If we take this into practice, for example, what are institutions able to do on Canton that they simply cannot do on other public blockchains today?
Yeah. In terms of the exact technical aspects of what differentiates Canton is, as I mentioned earlier, it's a network of networks. As opposed to other public permissionless blockchains, there's typically one main ledger, which is fully publicly transparent, where every single activity that you do is available for everyone to see. If you are an institution, you're heavily regulated. Number two, you most likely have client confidentiality clauses to protect. And then number three, institutional businesses are very, very competitive. And so you may have internal proprietary workflows or internal risk and controls and governance activities that you want to protect. And so the biggest gap between our public chain structure with the majority of other blockchain chain networks have been that within Canton, you can build your own sovereign subnet, structure your governance, your access controls, permissions, horizontal scaling as much as you want, and then enable when you want to interoperate with others, and control the privacy to the level that you want. So that's one of the core things, in the sense that within Canton, we have privacy on a need to know basis, and so that you can enable when you want others to engage and see what they have to see. And then also the data around what moves around is auditable as well. And then so that's the core difference, that we're a network of networks with interoperability layer versus other public permissionless blockchain, there's a singular ledger which everyone can see and interact with and engage with as well. And then when you go to the private permission side, obviously those are just private silos. So you're missing the composability and interoperability as well.
That makes sense. And the subnets are a clear benefit as well.
Yeah.
So this leads me directly to my next question. So many would argue, hey, okay, this is like actually like some kind of system built by like traditional finance, network of network. It's not like a real blockchain. And since you have like these close relationships, would you still consider Canton as like a ecosystem for DeFi? If yes, why? And if not, where do you draw the line here? And what is like DeFi for you, maybe here as well? And how is like DeFi considered within Canton?
So I would say like the way that the conversion or the merge between TradFi and DeFi is happening, I always find it hard to draw direct lines, because at the end of the day, I think within a year's time, we won't be saying DeFi or TradFi. It'll just be like all fi. It'll just be facilitating transactions on blockchains based off of your own use cases or preferences itself. So I don't quite think it makes sense drawing lines or picking one side versus another, because all of the different contributions and advancements that we're making them in order to enable better capital efficiencies or operational efficiencies across the board. And so, yeah, things that are happening within Canton are tapping into the core components and concepts around what DeFi offers, and other things have the core components and concepts of what traditional finance enables. But the main underlying thing is it's being facilitated by the power of blockchain itself. So that's how I would view and answer this question.
Yeah, no, I think I totally agree here. Like, it's so funny because like many people like wished that the institutions would come into
Right.
like the blockchain ecosystem like for years. Now they're coming, and now like many people like start to complain, hey, it's getting too centralized. But on the other hand side, we need the liquidity, right? I think all the liquidity coming from the retail side is basically already like kind of invested into the crypto ecosystem. And now, like, where are we going next, right? There needs to be more liquidity if we want to grow. So, and
that's 100%.
Actually, like you already answered my next question, which would have been like, do you see it more like a bridge between TradFi and DeFi, or is it like
a merge?
Yeah,
it'll just be a seamless merge across the board, and then the use cases will be dependent on the end counterparties and the core value that people are trying to get from the blockchain itself.
When we spoke to other people in the ecosystem, but also to other TradFi players, then they associate Canton with like privacy first, and that's pretty much what you're known for, and also a non-negotiable requirement for them. And if they ever want to run fully on chain. So what does it mean in reality? How do transactions look different compared to public and permissionless blockchains? Who can see what data on Canton and who doesn't?
Yeah, so on Canton, privacy is on a need-to-know basis. And then we have selective disclosures and also auditability of the data around things that happen. And these, the structures of these different activities are coded down to the sub-transaction level or the UTXO level as people are building their applications themselves. And so as opposed to other networks where it's basically fully publicly transparent. Every single activity you do is recorded within a singular ledger. On Canton, within your own application or even asset, you're able to identify the level of permissions and controls that you want to enable in order to fit, let's say if you're institutional counterparty, in order to fit your regulatory requirements or internal risk or competitive workflow features that you want as well. Yeah, so that's the key thing.
Okay, so would it be also fair to say that Canton prioritizes confidentiality by design over retrofitting what other chains, for example, do with ZK proof?
It's privacy by design. The confidentiality part can be enabled by whoever is building their own applications. And then in terms of ZK proofs, the biggest thing that people conflate within crypto and blockchain is they typically identify zero knowledge as privacy, but at the end of the day, ZK is actually anonymity, in a sense that within ZK, what happens is you have a black box where inputs go in and then you get an output. You're unable to audit what goes in. And so that's basically anonymizing what's in the whole blockchain and facilitating the ability to get an output where you just trust that it's correct. If you are an institution or you're regulated, you absolutely need to know what is coming in, not just what has come out of the black box. And so that's why within Canton, we say our privacy is on a need to know basis, because with the selective disclosure side of it, you're able to selectively disclose different components of the privacy solution within the application to the readily needed or available party that needs to see it. So, for example, after a transaction is done, you can enable it so that your regulator sees what they need to see, lawyer, accountant, counterparty, internal risk and controls and whatnot. And they don't need to see the full activity unless they are enabled to see it. So you're basically able to build in the same types of legal contract structures within our smart contract language to the granular sub-transaction level. Versus ZK, you just get an output and then you basically move on and agree to it.
Yeah. No, that's a good differentiation and makes sense. Now let's come to maybe political topic. So how does the Canton Foundation actually ensure neutrality so that no single bank, vendor, or technology provider dominates the network?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, the governance is very important to the overall network. And luckily, over the 10 years of building Canton, we were patient enough to observe and learn from the existing tokenomic structures and also the governance structures of others that have come before Canton in order to structure Canton networks foundation structure. So in terms of enabling neutrality, the core purpose of the foundation itself, myself and my team, is to enable the neutrality and the open development and governance of the Canton core stakeholders. And in doing so too, there is anyone can join the Canton Foundation. And on top of that too, within the core governance of the network itself, there is a 2/3 majority vote by the super validators in order to push through any major protocol changes or tokenomics initiative adjustments as well. And so these are all activities that are deliberated and discussed on a weekly basis across the different committees that I mentioned earlier. And in doing so, it's publicly available to the members of the foundation and the broader community to see the changes and activities that are happening. On top of this too, the beauty about how we're structured is that it's not just a network of the largest banks and institutions like Goldman Sachs, HSBC, BNP Paribas, and the likes, but we also have crypto native entities who are also contributing to the network as well. So yeah, that's how it's been structured.
Super cool. So you recently also launched like a protocol development fund. So
Yep.
Tell us maybe a little bit more about it. And I mean, we know all these grant systems from other ecosystems and how it works, and that there's like also like a lot of like scams going on. And I think if I'm correct, the Canton Foundation or the Canton Network never really intended to do something like that. like something like a product development fund. Like, what are you targeting now, and who can apply to, and like what kind of projects do you want to attract?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, yeah, time and again, ecosystem development funds have been gamified, have been very abused, and they're haven't been very, very sustainable across different networks. And so for us, when we launched Canton Network and the foundation itself, we didn't launch it with a grants program. Our tokenomic structure was created in order to generally initially incentivize people to come in and organically build, in the sense that the token, we'd had no pre-sales, no pre-mines or pre-allocations. And so it was structured in the sense that as you provide utility to the network, you also get rewarded in Canton Coin for the transaction output that you are bringing to Canton itself. And so with that, it was organically built in where more than 50% of future mineable Canton coin across the minting curve is dedicated towards applications launching on network. So through that, we organically got interest from builders coming in to identify certain verticals and niches to build. As the network has grown and expanded, it makes sense to continuously sustain the network overall through a structure such as a developer grant program to facilitate enhancing and incentivizing people to contribute to certain verticals or certain segments across the network. People coming in who are going to be launching network-wide goods and services are the ones who this program has been created for. So some of the main areas that the grant is facilitating engagements include builders who are going to be contributing to the core research and development to advance the protocol and network capabilities, developer tools, and also resource building across Canton, engagement around security work and audits, people launching reference applications so that others can utilize to build other enhanced protocols on the network, DeFi application liquidity seeding to support utility of early DeFi protocols. And then lastly, facilitating the ability for builders joining the network to build critical infrastructure that the overall system relies on. So we see that, yeah, core funds, ecosystem funds don't work well. So for us, we've been very tailored and focused on what we wanted to enable. And then outside of that too, it's for people building network-wide products and goods for the Canton ecosystem.
Really like that. I can see that it will be one of the enablers for you guys.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears a little bit. We go to quickfire. And I will ask you one question, and you have one word each to answer. Are you ready?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, let's go. One word to describe Canton's core design philosophy.
So this is like 2 words, but privacy first.
Let's put hyphens in there. It's one word.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
the hardest TradFi requirement to satisfy on-chain.
Yeah, over the years, it's been privacy.
The biggest misconception institutions have about public blockchains.
So one of the biggest misconceptions have been that generally contributing to public blockchain. Oh, is it just one word
One word.
misconception?
I just wanted to remind you.
Fully open, like public
Okay.
blockchains are fully open. Yeah.
Now, the biggest misconception crypto natives have about banks.
Not open to blockchain.
One feature public chains would need to gain serious institutional adoption.
Configurable privacy.
Good. One thing that surprised you when institutions actually started building on the global synchronizer.
Very active on the governance side.
Positive surprise. Okay. Now, I give you one sentence to answer. Looking 3 to 5 years ahead, what needs to be true for Canton to be considered the core market infrastructure rather than a pilot network?
What needs to be true in terms of, can you repeat that?
What needs to be true for Canton to be considered the core market infrastructure rather than a pilot network?
Oh, so with that, I wanted to actually highlight that Canton isn't a pilot network. We've had a lot of real, true product market fit use cases over the years, in the sense that we have Broadridge, which is doing over $350 billion a day in repo transactions. We have Goldman Sachs at GS DApp, which is built on Canton, Societe Generale, and also BNP Paribas have launched tokenization solutions on the network. We've done production case treasury transactions with the likes of the DTCC, TradeWeb, Citadel, and most recently we've worked with London Stock Exchange and as well to facilitate cross-border repo transactions using US Treasuries, European bonds as well, and different stable coins and demand deposits. So it's a misconception that Canton, these are pilot network activities, because these are real, true transactions that are helping facilitate capital efficiencies and operational efficiencies across the ecosystem.
That's clear, and I think you guys put the #1 pole position when launching on RWA volumes, for example.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's not a pilot. Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that question, it's like it's already happening right now. Like Canton network is.
Yeah. I think like many people just didn't realize that, like these like actual volumes, and like they were used to once previously, right? And now.
So that's the that's one of the biggest things, is that over the years within the immediate crypto ecosystem, we lose sight of the fact that outside of the $2.5 trillion market we have, the broader financial market is over $300 to $500 trillion worth, right? And then with that, we lost focus in the sense that we were only thinking about things that are fully, always publicly transparent. And then if something you can't see, you just assume that it's not on a blockchain. The main core thing is that, and the main thing that Canton enables, that we are a public permissionless blockchain, but then it's up to the issuer or the asset or the builder to enable the configurable privacy depending on the assets or their internal requirements, client requirements, or regulatory requirements, what should be shown publicly and what should be shown privately. So literally today, we do see on RWXYZ that Broadridge is doing $350 billion per day. But beyond that, on Canton's blockchain, but beyond that, we have other partners that are doing syndicated loans all the way to life insurance and annuities that haven't publicly shown those data points yet, right? So it's up to them to decide to do it. So literally, once that unlock comes up, that number is gonna shoot up, because traditional financial market products have much bigger notional basis than what we see currently in crypto. And then just due to the nature of them, they cannot show everything publicly. You know, so that's why in crypto we just thought that if I can't see it, it's not real. But that's not the case.
Yeah. Right. Do you think there will be ever like estimations like how big the volumes actually are?
Well, today on Canton, we have publicly you can see Broadridge at 350 billion per day. But beyond that, we have partners who have done work on the network, and there's over $6 trillion of TVL that has been facilitated within the Canton ecosystem holistically. And then, as I mentioned, it's all about the selective disclosures, right? So it's up to the issuer to disclose what they want to, but yeah.
Privacy first.
Exactly, yeah.
I think that this wraps up our show, but before we leave you. And where can they learn more about the Canton Foundation, about Canton, and who should we talk to next?
Yeah, so people can find me on X. I'm at MLVSBZNZ, or on Telegram as well, and then LinkedIn. And then lastly, to get more information about the network, you can go to canton.network. To get more information about the foundation, it's canton.foundation. And lastly, for whom to speak to next, I think it'd be interesting to get. We have a partner called Zenith, and one of their key leaders is Heslin. So Zenith is bringing EVM and SVM compatibility to Canton. And so that may be an interesting conversation to talk about why they're looking to enable bringing these types of other types of assets onto Canton. Because one of the key things that people don't realize is that although within Canton, we've built an institutional grade blockchain for institutional finance, we're a full public permissionless blockchain. So we do have builders who are launching dApps across verticals such as DeFi. We actually have a number of launches coming up in Q1, Q2 across DEXs, perps, prediction markets, lending and borrowing, and also vaults as well. So all those are sort of typical products you see on other chains are coming to Canton. And one key thing that I've realized is that many of these builders are identifying that they can launch similar types of products, but be able to also add new primitives around them with privacy and controls that they couldn't do on the other network. And then lastly, Canton's tokenomics have been quite interesting for them to explore, because as opposed to networks where if you launch an application and the apps is generating, let's say 10 to 15% of the transaction activity, and this has happened time and time again, most networks, those growth stats only go towards the validators and infrastructure providers. They're the ones who generate the transaction fees from validating transactions. But in Canton, the applications themselves also generate these fees. So people are coming in to build because they can also generate utility and gain rewards for what they're putting into the network. Because if you think about it, in Ethereum, like Uniswap, Aave, Tether, Circle, with their products, they've brought so much utility into Ethereum, but they didn't get one ETH for that utility, right? It all went to the validators. They're the ones who mine those activity rewards, right? So, but with Canton, we identify that your builder, you should be rewarded for all the work and effort that you put in, not just the infrastructure provided, where at the end of the day, the infrastructure activity is commoditized, but it's the apps are the ones who sustain the ecosystem. They're the ones who bring the users to the ecosystem. So that's why we structure it that way. So incentive alignment, and also being able to launch new primitives around privacy, around different protocols, has been two of the key things that people are coming to build. And then by Zenith enabling this bridge back and forth, will enhance and get more people to the ecosystem.
Wow, amazing insights, and also amazing incentives for the builders and those who operate the validators. So thank you so much, Melvis. That wraps up this week's episode of Internet Capital Markets. A huge thank you to you for joining us for today's episode on privacy at scale, with today an insider talk about Canton's institutional blockchain and the global synchronizer, and how it's being built and where it goes. And if you enjoyed today's discussion, make sure to subscribe, rate, and share the show. It helps us to bring more conversations with the people shaping the future of on-chain finance. This is Internet Capital Markets. Please join us next week. Until then, stay curious, stay connected, and keep building the future of finance. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.